Hello, hi, my name is Yankho Seunda. With just about 8 months to go before we face the 2019 tripartite elections, a number of issues are actually happening in the country on the political scene. A number of people have been talking about issues of castigation in terms of politics. And a few others from other sectors of the public have talked about how important it is for the country to observe issue-based politics. And joining me in the program is the Executive Director of Bwalo Likule Network, Mr. Andrew Kaponya, who is going to highlight some issues in regards to issue-based politics. My name is Yankho Seunda. Stay tuned. The ultimate goal of having a political party serving the government, serving the people, is to build a better society. So that's why we involve different people to give us ideas on how to build a better society by reaching out to the people in authority so that they effect such a type of ideas. As I earlier said, joining us today is the Executive Director of Bwalo Likule Network, Mr. Andrew Kaponya. For a start, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
It is quite an honor to have you here and to have you highlight on issues that we would like to discuss today. Quite a paramount issue to do with issue-based politics. But before we get to the nitty-gritties of what we'd like to talk about, briefly tell us a brief background of your organization.
Thank you very much once again. To begin with, Bwalo Likule Network started 2 years ago. That was a group of students in the university, to be particular, the Chancellor College, who were deliberating issues of advancing socio-economic development in the country. And they were interrogating the positive role that the youth can take in advancing such agendas. Actually, these issues were emanating from class discussions where lecturers used to provoke us with real issues that would build the nation, the better country that we all want to see. So as a result of such continuous provocations from the lecturers, a number of students sat down to say, okay, let's start a WhatsApp group where we can continue to deliberate these issues and see how we can advance them beyond the classroom discussion. So that was the beginning of a group, a WhatsApp group. Originally, it was called Inter-University Forum for Development. That's how it started. But after a few months, it started growing. The membership grew outside the Chancellor College to other universities because of the linkages that the members in the group had with the fellow students. So we grew membership to the Polytechnic, the MAST, in Tiolo, Luana, College of Medicine, and later on we saw private colleges joining it, and it became big. When we left the college, that's when we thought of registering it officially as an NGO. So that was in 2017 when we decided to register as an NGO. As we are speaking now, Bwalo Likule Network is a registered NGO. That was in 2017. Actually, what Bwalo Likule Network do as a core objective is to advance issues to do with mindset change. Why mindset change? When we were at college, we discovered that among the many factors that affect the socio-economic development of a country is how people think, how then later on they do things based on their thinking. we discovered that in the country we have a problem in terms of our thinking patterns. There are, some people say, retrogressive, negative, and in the end, this kind of negative thinking leads to negative participation in terms of socioeconomic development of the country. So we thought it wise that apart from just talking about mindset change, because we've heard it from a number of circles, people, politicians, various professionals in various sectors talking about mindset. They've been saying that I think most of the issues that we are lagging behind, that we are failing to do positively, is because of the way we sometimes think. And to an extent, some people have given some examples of different countries where I think the kind of thinking that they have adopted in those countries have enabled them to progress so well. And we've got instances of countries that have done very well from a state where they were so retrogressive, they were so poor, there was no progress at all, to a state where today we are actually citing them as examples of countries that have produced miracles in terms of economic transition.
Piling up all the issues that you have talked about, it's been 54 years since we attained our independence. And the country hasn't moved that far in terms of socio-economic development. Are you attributing this resistance to growth to issues to do with thinking only?
Not at all. There are a number of factors that are attributed to our current state of affairs in terms of socioeconomic development. However, we isolated one particular issue among all those factors, and that issue is mindset change. And let me mention also that various academicians have mentioned it in their literature, that a country that has people that do not adopt a positive thinking attitude and positive way of doing things does not develop. So there are so many factors. We can spend the whole day talking about various other factors that affect the development of a country. But thinking in terms of how people look at things, how they perceive things, and later on do things, have got a greater impact.
Positively progressing with our conversation, you're running a project which is to do with issue-based politics. Tell us more about this particular project.
Indeed, Bwalo Likule Network has introduced a project which we have called it issue-based politics is possible. This project has been developed in line, of course, with the same concept of mindset change. We've not departed away from our core mandate.
And it couldn't have come at such a better time, considering that different political parties are going around the country trying to woo people to support them come 2019 tripartite elections.
Exactly so, because the idea of issue-based politics is possible has been provoked by a situation. The current situation in the country is very provocative. And when we look at the direction that we are heading to, I think we are not heading the positive direction or the right direction that we all want to.
How provocative is the current situation in this country?
Let me, you mentioned rightly about 54 years of independence. You know, this country adopted independence in 1964. This year, we've clocked about 54 years. When you look at the achievements that we have registered so far, one wonders where or what we have been doing the past 54 years. It has been worrisome. We've been progressing, we've been moving very slow. And this year, 2018, as we are heading towards the next general election, what we are trying to put across and put on table to Malawians across the country, in Sanje to Chitipa, is maybe to sit and rethink our direction, to sit and rethink what we have been doing in the past and whether we indeed can go out and be proud that this is exactly what we have yielded in 54 years of independence. So when you look at such kind of provocative questions that come out, you know, not only from me, but from different sectors, and then when you look at the kind of behaviors, habits that our politicians today in 2018 are exhibiting in an effort to lure people to support them, I think it's something that we have to be worried. We have to be worried because it's not an encouraging situation. They are not encouraging habits and behaviors because one, they are behaviors and attitudes that will take us backwards or 54 years backwards and not achieve anything in the next 5 years.
Before we get to the area of worry, give us a firm understanding of issue-based politics as a term. And what are some of the principal areas that primarily a person is supposed to be focusing on when talking about issue-based politics?
All right. When we talk of issue-based politics, maybe let me put it this way. When we are choosing leaders to run this country in terms of political leadership, we are choosing leaders that are of service to the people, leaders that will understand the situation in which the country is in, leaders that have good aspirations, that can drive a new agenda of transformation among the people in rural as well as urban areas, leaders that can challenge us with very creative ideas in terms of changing the way we are seeing things around and trying to move forward in a speed that is more reasonable.
Not only theoretically, but also practically.
Not at all, but practically. Because listen, when people talk about development, most of the times what you hear are theoretical issues that do not translate to the common person in the rural areas. Let me say this. The rural people, as well as urban people, what they want in this country is genuine transformation. Transformation that can create jobs, you know, decent jobs to people as well as young people. We are talking about transformation that can change the economic structure of this country. Because you mentioned at some point that what are some of the issues that are rocking this country, that are failing us in this country. It's the economic structure. The structure of this country economically is so traditional that cannot take us anywhere. So we want politicians that can understand those issues, that can bring solid solutions to those issues and drive a genuine agenda that will see a man, a woman in the village, you know, being able to get the medicine in the hospitals, that will be able to cultivate crops, find markets at good prices, a man and a woman in the villages that will be able to access potable water, a man and a woman in the village that will be able to access information that will help that man and woman to make decisions that are more relevant to the transformation of their lives. A man and a woman that will be able to access education equitably without seeing some elements of discrimination to some extent. We want
and
to
there
see
has to be quality education.
Quality education, not just education. We want to see a man and a woman who is able to start a business, grow it, transform it, and start recruiting or employing other people. That's actually the kind of
a society that we like to realize.
Exactly. That's what we want to see. So what we are saying is, time is now that our politicians should come out very clean and tell us their aspirations
and speak on such issues
and see whether those aspirations are in line with our current problems as Malawians, and start citing how they are going to achieve such kind of things. This is what we call issue-based politics. So we want to see a politician who come on a political platform or podium and tell us where we are coming from, where we are, what are the challenges that we have been facing, what are the opportunities ahead of us, and what is it exactly that they are going to do. You know, lay out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Practical solutions.
A clear roadmap that is one can be trusted, that is believable. We should be able to believe the person who is articulating such kind of things. However, that's not the situation that we are seeing currently among our politicians.
And that was actually my next question. I was about to say that considering that you are an organization which is promoting issue-based politics, what do you make of the current way politicians or political parties are conducting themselves ahead of the 2019 tripartite elections?
Very discouraging, very worrisome, pathetic, and I don't know, something that I'm failing to find a better way that can define the current conduct of our politicians currently.
What could be the reason behind? Is there a lack of foresight, or what is the reason why such is the case?
When you see someone departing from real issues to discuss issues that are not relevant to transition this country from a poor country to at least a well-to-do developing where people are transforming and the like, what comes to our mind is that those people do not have real issues. They do not understand what Malawians are going through, or they understand but deliberately taking advantage of maybe illiteracy levels and all those kind of advantages that are there. You know, so that's basically what we can say about
some
such kind
other
of
quarters of the society have argued that that's the way the political structure of our nation was built. So this is not necessarily pretty much a transition process, but we're just taking it from the base of how it was structured, and we are moving ahead implementing it. What's your say on it?
2018, going forward, we need to start interrogating those structures. Who built them? Who defined the kind of politics that we should pursue? Who defines, by the way, who actually interpreted the actual word politics into our native language? We call it Ndale. You know, so when we say yes, these are the things that have come all the way from our forefathers, way even before 1964 and the like, this is how things have been happening. That is the problem that we are trying to resolve as Bwalo Likule Network. Because when we talk of mindset change, we are challenging, you know, the kind of thinking software, let me use that word, that has been planted on us either deliberately or not, and we have believed for years and years that that's the way things are supposed to be happening. You know, there is no such a thing like a permanent thinking that cannot be challenged. So we want to interrogate. We want people to sit down and say, is this exactly how we were supposed to be doing things? Is there no way out, or is there no other way of doing things better? So mindset change interrogates such kind of thinking so that Malawians can adopt a positive thinking that can challenge the old ways of doing things to new ways of doing things.
Recently, we have seen other political parties castigating each other. For example, in the case of DPP as well as United Transformation Movement, members of these respective parties at rallies, you would hear them, you know, castigating one another. How much is this a concern to you?
This is what brought the project, issue-based politics, is possible. Let me tell you the implications of such kind of castigations. When we have tolerated such kind of castigations, hate speeches, and what have you, what happened later on is that when we go past elections, the emerging winner and loser becomes permanent enemies. In the end, these people cannot work together, cannot unite, cannot work for the benefit of Malawian in the rural and urban who is suffering from abject poverty. So you see them lacking what we call unity of purpose. Why have I said this? Development requires
unity of purpose.
Everyone, disregarding their political affiliations, religious affiliations, tribal, or what have you, to work together for the better of that country. Borrowing from what other countries do, you know, what we have seen, mature democracies, what they do. Yes, there can be some tensions as we move towards the elections. But after the elections, you see that people unite and begin to build the country for the better of every citizen in that particular country. That is what has been lacking. So we are envisaging two situations. One, a very bad situation during the campaign period itself, which is violent campaign period. We are also envisaging during the election itself, very unfair election. We are also envisaging after the election, continued violences, disunity among various people across the country.
Are you insinuating that there has been a misinterpretation of the term democracy in the country, and to what extent?
Let me mention what democracy is all about. Democracy, when we talk of democracy, democracy is where people can genuinely participate in the decision-making processes of that country. When we say genuinely participate, one, we mean people deciding priority areas that have to be advanced by government. Number two, taking part in deciding on how resources can be allocated among those priority areas. Number three, how Malawians can also positively take part in evaluating the impact of various projects. You know, that is what we call democracy.
And that is not happening in the country.
To some extent, it is happening, but not to a level that we would wish it should happen.
Okay.
Yes.
In case you're just tuning in, you're watching Point Blank on Times Television. My guest today is the Executive Director of Bwalo Likule Network, Mr. Andrew Kaponya, and we are discussing issue-based politics. We will be back after this break. Welcome back. You're watching Point Blank. My name is Yankho Seunda, and my guest today is the Executive Director of Bwalo Likule Network, Mr. Andrew Kaponya, who is here to talk about issue-based politics, considering that we are 8 months away from the 2019 tripartite elections. And in such a period, political parties are going around wooing people, bringing them in touch with their ideas of how they're going to change this nation if voted into power. We were talking about politics of castigation, and you said you are pretty much worried with how political parties are running around castigating each other in a runoff to the 2019 tripartite elections. But the basic question may be, have you engaged any of these political parties on this?
A very good question. I think that question is about who are our targets. I think that's how I will attempt to answer that. The target group for this project are not political parties.
Some people may ask why why is such the case, because we expect issue-based politics from the authority, the people wooing us, not necessarily the people, the subjects.
Let me mention that the authority in this case are not political parties. The authority in this case are the people themselves. People who register, sit on a line for some hours, cast a vote, choose a leader, those are the authority in as far as socio-economic development of a country is concerned. So what we have done as a matter of defining our target group, we are targeting the people themselves. The Malawian in Nsanje to Chitipa who will make a final decision. Why have we targeted people and not political parties? You see, it's very interesting that some political parties would think castigations is a weapon for them to defeat their fellow politicians. So we don't want to tamper around with their strategy if they think that is a strategy. What we want to do is to sit and reason with the Malawian who is going to make a decision and help them, help Malawians to understand what do we mean by issue-based politics. Number two, what are the issues that politicians have to address that will help you to choose who is genuinely a leader who is going to take us through the turbulent times that we are facing in this country. So our task is to sit with a Malawian, reason with a Malawian, try to sensitize among those Malawians. What is it exactly that we should be listening from the politicians? We want to see a situation where Malawians can ignore all those castigations and be able to see, isolate real issues from petty issues. Be able to see who is addressing their real issues. We want to see a situation even where a Malawian can stand at a political rally and say, you know what, that's not why we are here. We want to see a Malawian reach a stage where, regardless of political affiliation, can attend any political rally and hear from various politicians what is it that they have, on the table that can change, the situation, the current state of affairs.
Some people may argue that it cannot be as effective, let's say, approaching people in this particular project than approaching politicians may not be as effective. Why am I saying such? The basic idea to this particular concept is mindset change.
Yes.
We are living in a society where there are high illiteracy levels, and to have a conversation with that type of a person, to reason with that person, to understand the concepts behind issue-based politics, than to sit with a politician who is well-versed with knowledge would have been way much more simple. People coming through with such assertions, what would you say?
You see, we are coming from a background where we have always thought that things are difficult. And that's actually a product of the mindset. This cannot be possible. This cannot be possible. Malawians are illiterate. Malawians can't get this. But let me tell you, Malawians are not that illiterate.
Actually, most Malawians are illiterate.
Most Malawians, yes, are illiterate in terms of basic education, in terms of going to school and doing all sorts of studies and the like. But let me tell you, Malawians are able to make decisions on their own in their villages about what is it that they want and what is it that they don't want.
Are you scared to target the political parties?
We are not scared at all.
Why then
We are not scared at all.
Because these are the people that bring issues of castigation to limelight.
Yes.
Why skip them and go to subjects?
Let me say this. One, we are not scared of them. We have in the past, done such kind of efforts to talk to, address politicians. But what we are saying is that politicians are
yield any results, though,
politicians are in a comfort zone. They think this is better way of conquering, defeating.
Such comfort zones didn't yield you results. Is that what you insinuating?
No. We are not saying they didn't yield the results. But what we are saying is those castigations are targeting you and me. You know, they come on a political platform to address you and me.
Getting back to basics, did you give up on politicians to think of targeting the people now, receiving the messages?
We redesigned the project in terms of being able to understand where this change should come from.
Why didn't you think of redesigning the project in terms of your approach to the politicians, so that by the end of the day it works from top to bottom?
Let me tell you something. A politician will come on a political podium and say, our political party is not going to waste time to castigate on others. And a minute later, use the same statement to start castigations. Politicians in the country should learn a lesson from the voter, from us, the owners of this country, those that have been vested through a constitution with the power to choose. So what we are saying is, we want to address one who has the power to choose, someone who has the sword to change things around. That is you and me, who is going on 19th May 2019 to choose. So that power to choose is what we are looking for. You know, so when we target someone who has the power to choose, that someone is going to change the landscape. And let me tell you something. Having done a number of talking about this project, we are receiving positive feedbacks from people echoing the concerns that they have.
In my mind, I'm looking at the machinery that you do have and the machinery that the politicians do have in terms of disseminating different informations. Because in the long run, what we are having here is a struggle. You're going to advocate a different message, quite contrary to what politicians are advocating. And these people have heavy machineries in terms of advocating their messages. Don't you think you're doing a wasted effort?
Not at all. Let me mention that. Let me say something about that. This is not a wasted effort. What is going to happen is that a Malawian, let alone, is going to decide the destiny of this country, is going to decide how things should be done, is going to decide who is talking sense and who is not talking sense. Once we have reached that situation where a Malawian, one who has the authority to put leaders in power, this politician will find the weapon to be useless one day and very shortly. Because as we are addressing people, these messages indirectly will be reaching them. And they will know that we have ganged up against them. You know, once they do that, for them to show that, yes, indeed, we are the ones who are practicing good politics, clean politics, which is free from castigations, hate speeches, they will now be going into those political rallies and convince people that now we are talking issues. Actually, we have started seeing some elements. We are not losing the battle. We have started seeing the benefits. We are reaping the benefits because some of these politicians, some of these political parties have started echoing what we are talking about. Once you see such kind of signs, you realize, you later on know that the messages that are targeting the voter are now reaching the politician. We have, I don't want to cite specific examples, but we have seen a number of political parties talking about mindset change, you know, in their political rallies. Quite positive. We have seen a number of political parties talking about we should stick to issues. Our party should not be concentrating on castigations and the like. We have seen a political leader just recently inviting different politicians to unite to address a problem. What that shows is that these messages that we are making here are reaching these politicians. And they have started realizing that Malawians are ganging up against them because, one, they are tired of the current state they are in, which was imposed on them by the very same politicians. They are tired with the system. They are tired with the understanding of democracy. They are tired with the meaning of democracy, because for them, what they were looking for is genuine transformation. You know, they were looking for jobs, they were looking for medicine, they were looking for clean water, potable water, socio-economic development. You know, and they are not getting that.
I'm going to put you on the spotlight on issues to do with governance. You are an organization which is promoting such.
Yes.
That's why you're talking about issue-based politics.
Yes.
DPP was voted into power in 2014. How would you rate their performance from 2014 to now, when we're talking about issues of governance? Because they were voted into power, I assume, because of the issues highlighted in their manifesto.
Quite a very interesting question, and indeed a question that would put someone in spotlight. Let me mention that we have, as an organization, observed closely on issues of good governance, namely issues of accountability, issues of transparency, issues of freedoms, human rights, and whatsoever we have in good governance. When the DPP got into power in 2014, prior to that, they had a very articulate manifesto, a very interesting manifesto in terms of issues of good governance and the like. Observations we have done, and there are some things that we think they have done, but we still think that there are also issues that remain unresolved as we are talking today. And as a party on their side, I think they should come out clear to the voter in the next year election to address such issues, why they think they did not do well in such areas. I think I can spot out one issue of corruption. I think corruption is still rampant, despite the different efforts that we have been hearing. We have arrested this, we have arrested that. We are also mindful of the judicial processes that are followed when you want to interrogate issues of corruption, because there are issues of lawyers coming in, defense team, and all those kind of things. But we still think that the reports that are coming out, corruption is still rampant, and I should mention that I think they were supposed to do more than what they have done now, and they need now to come up with a clear roadmap, because you see, one problem that we hear from politicians is we'll fight corruption. That's the word that we always hear from politicians. We are also hearing it now. We'll fight corruption. But how are you going to do it? The nitty-gritties of how to fight corruption. What kind of systems are you going to put in place? I, for one, if I'm to make a recommendation to these politicians, I think one of the issues that they need to seriously address is the independence of the governance structure that was supposed to address issues of corruption. In this case, the Anti-Corruption Bureau. You know, I think if it is DPP itself, when they are coming out to the people, they have to make a strong commitment that I think in the next 5 years they want to relieve, they want to leave the ACB to do their job entirely as a free agency. Maybe we should recommend to politicians that even the director of the Anti-Corruption Bureau must be appointed not by the state president, but maybe by the appointments committee in the parliament. I think those are the things that the politicians going forward need to address. I will not say DPP need to address as if we know that.
But in this particular case, we'd have to talk about DPP because it is the current administration running things.
Yes.
But one thing that you have talked about in terms of the underperformance of the party, its base has been drawn from issues of them being laid back. Are you suggesting that they have been so laid back in their approach to end corruption in this country?
The approach, for me, I think needs to be redesigned. We need to think again how we are going to do it, because you see, corruption, as many politicians have said, is not only practiced within the government structures, but it has permeated across various sectors. So when you want to address corruption, you know, let's not only concentrate on the politician. We need to also concentrate on other sectors of the economy, including the private sectors of the economy. So we need to hear a clear roadmap of how there is going to be a complete overhaul in terms of how we are going to root out, because corruption indeed is a serious disease that has left us poor for the past 54 years, because we are seeing a lot of public resources going down the drain. And within this also circle of corruption, we shouldn't forget ourselves, CSOs, NGOs, that have to be also accountable. Because I've seen also reports that have suggested that there is also corruption among other CSOs, among other NGOs, or lack of accountability among other CSOs, among other NGOs. So when a politician is coming out to make a commitment of how they wanted to address corruption, I think they need to address it, or they need to come up with a very comprehensive structure, system, well thought out plan that
Getting
is
back
going
to the basis of the question, has the DPP-led administration been laid back in its approach to end corruption in the country?
I think the DPP as a government, in this case, currently, has done some strides, but not enough for us to celebrate. Because I think we are seeing reports from various parastatal organizations. However, you also have to understand an element within the fight against corruption, which is the culprits themselves playing defensive when such kind of things. I think that's where also mindset change has to come in, where you know, you see people that have been caught in corrupt practices, when they are dragged to court, we tend to politicize such kind of things. So I think to some extent they are also facing such kind of things.
When a government is not doing particularly well on such fronts, there are also expectations from governments in waiting, and these are opposition political parties, of course, to provide what we call checks and balances.
Yes.
How would you describe their role in providing such?
I think the opposition, those, you know, politicians that are also aspiring to drive the agenda of this country, over time, I think they have done their part. We've seen in Parliament efforts, you know, that have uncovered, you know, serious corrupt cases in the country, you know, and we have also seen them in collaboration with the CSOs speaking out, you know, against those issues, taking issues to task, or taking government to task. I think they have done their part. However, I think what we need going forward is partnership between the opposition and the politician in government.
The issue that you were talking about, unity of purpose.
To work together, because this is not a one man's or one party issue.
Lastly, we have run out of time. There have been talks that Malawians are usually passive to talk about issues of governance. Do you agree?
Yes and no. Because number one, no. Let me start with the no. We have some sections of the society
And we have like a minute to go.
Yeah, that have played a rightful role. They've come out, they've voiced out. However, there are other sectors, maybe because of the issues of democratic illiteracy that we talk about, that they've not come out because I think Malawians are too patient about certain things that hurt them, that destroy them, that does not take this country forward. So I think going forward, that's what we are trying to address.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Kaponya, for coming through to Point Blank. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very
much.
much.
Such a nice conversation.
Thank you.
And on that note, we have come to the end of today's edition of Point Blank on Times Television. My guest today was Mr. Andrew Kaponya, who is the Executive Director of Bwalo Likule Network, and we were discussing issue-based politics. Until next time, when I'll be back with yet another edition of Point Blank on Times Television, my name is Yankho Seunda. Goodbye.